So here is Tim Weiss. I call him Weiss because Wise, just not befitting this person. Needless to say, I do not like this man in the least. Mainly because, as I told Divinity or told one of her commenters on the comment section of her videos, well, the man is a master. I'll give him that. He is a master at rhetoric and populism. I am not a big fan of populism at all. It is not, and that form of rhetoric, it is not meant to inform or educate and it normally comes out of a place in one's being that is often a negative area. And I can go into more about why I don't like that form of rhetoric, but regardless, just to get that bias side out of the way, and he clearly has something against white people. There's no doubt about that, because it seems that that's all he talks about. It's on some sort of crusade. Listening to this man talk and his theories and this and that and what he talks about, it's as if I have a couple of hypotheses here. Of course, it's not scientific. I'm not here to prove this right now. But I get the impression that there can only be two motivations for this man's crusade. One is either he attributes any success or anything in his life that is of a positive note to the mere fact that he has white skin and had at some point in his life come across this idea and must have felt so guilty about it that he must now, I guess, make everybody else feel guilty about it too. Misery loves company, I guess. The second one is a bit more conspiratorial. That he seems to be becoming from some sort of communistic, some sort of Marxist mindset to equalize everything, equalize everyone to such an extreme degree that he'll do and say anything to achieve that. And going after the white power elite is, I guess that's his way of trying to achieve such a thing, or even in a broader aspect, trying to guilt every single white person that hears his words into, feeling bad for the atrocities that some Spaniard did or some other European did, 400 years ago. But who knows? Those are just hypotheses, just little observations. But one part of the video that I want to talk about here, just to quote him and talk about it, is from the 26 minute and 30 second mark to the 30 second mark. Only 3 minutes. This is what he says. Now, this is just populism at its, it's just great. Right? He's gonna tell you a story, right? He's a storyteller. He's gonna tell you a story. And perhaps everything he says in this is true. And even if that's the case, right, for him, what does that mean? It's just what is it? It's just one man's experience, right? Does it represent the reality? Does it represent the reality for all white people? Does it represent the reality for all black people? Because that's how he presents it, in very simplistic terms. This group, that group. So it goes on to say that he had the knowledge that he was perceived in school as highly capable, not because of his class background, which was no great shakes, but because he was seen as a bright, capable white child. When did he have that perception, I wonder? And conversely, when do black people have that perception? I could see possibly when you're older. Maybe in middle school, maybe even high school. But as young, have you ever had that perception, honestly? That you're in school and like, oh, these people, and how does he know this of the teachers and the faculty and such? or whoever else. Right? He's not very specific about who he's talking about or where. Maybe he goes into detail in some book, but at least in this talk here, as far as performing his, that's what it is, it's a performance. So as far as his performance goes, right, he's going to talk very vaguely here, and we're not really getting any, we're not really being informed, right? We're being told a story. But how does he know that these teachers and faculty are like, oh, he's highly capable because he's white. Did they tell him that? I seriously doubt that, but who knows? Maybe that's his real life story. Maybe that really happened to him. And conversely, maybe there was a black kid that was told by his teacher, well, you're not capable because you're black, you see. That could have happened. I'm not saying that, but does that really represent the reality for the black community, in America today? Going on, he says, I was seen as bright and capable white child, and students of color who were every bit as capable as I. You see, how did you know that? See, he's going to go on to talk about this word. He says it very quickly. He says, I were tracked low, students of color who were every bit as capable as I were tracked low while I was tracked high. What he's talking about there is the tracking system in education. You'll have to look that up. I'm not going to explain it all right now. It's just basically your performance level, you all get grouped together in your classes, things like that. Yeah, what is he talking about? What grade is he talking about? When did this happen to him? How does he know that was happening to him because he was white? Right? He says, continues on. I could make bad, and conversely, how does he know that it was happening to black students because they were black? I mean, that could be studied, right? You can show studies for that if they have them. All right, I could make bad grades, and I never seemed to fall out of favor in those types of classes because I was seen as simply underperforming, not quite living up to my standards. So I received a psychological edge. This is the privilege he's talking about, the psychological white privilege, right? Of knowing that in those classrooms, if I didn't do well, and I often didn't, I was a bad student, but if I didn't do well, I didn't have to worry. That would be ascribed to my race. It's amazing that he has this power to read people's minds. He knew what was in all his teachers' heads, or were they making it overt? Right? That's what I mean. Again, the storytelling I find amazing here. Continuing on, I never had to worry that someone would say, well, of course he's not good at that because, he's white. As if to say that is what was being told to the black kids in his class there. Right? As if the black kids had to worry about that the teachers and the faculty, they're just going around, they say this sort of thing, right? Is that true? And if it was true, what does it represent? Where was it? Just this one teacher in this one school that was a bad teacher, or does it represent 50% of white teachers across the land? What is it? Oh, it's a story. We don't know. Because unless I was going to be trying out for a job that involved jumping or dancing, what stereotype exactly is working against me as a white person? There aren't many. But for people of color, see, he's just going to, right, tell you the story here. This group, it's a whole different ballgame. Right, because all their experiences are the same. Right, exactly. Knowing that if they underperform in an academic environment, knowing that if they end a sentence with a preposition, when that an answer, I think that's supposed to be they. Oh, let's fix it. I think. When they answer that question in class, what question? Or if they mispronounce a word, or if they simply answer the question wrong, they have to wonder whether they drop the ball, not just for themselves, but for all those coming after them, who look like them, whose presence on that campus or in that job complex. And he goes off into this other stuff here, but it's amazing that he knows what's in all the students' minds every time they get questioned by their teacher I've gone to school my whole life with people of all races, and everybody gets questioned when they get something wrong, right? Unless you're gonna show me something of some actual real life evidence of a teacher doing, saying, "Oh, because you're black, you got that word wrong. Oh, it's because you're black." Things of that nature. What's it? How do you know what other people are perceiving? It's just madness. This guy is maddening. For all looking whose presence on that campus or in that job complex, in that office, is constantly under scrutiny. Guess what, Timmy? Everybody's performance is under scrutiny at all times at a job. Yeah, and you get questioned. It doesn't. Yet, you know what? There may be people out there that when they hire a black person that do say, "Well, because he's black, we're going to have to take extra care to watch him." Maybe, yeah, I'm sure that happens. Constantly being double guessed, second and third and fourth guessed. Yeah, do they really belong here? Right, so he goes on to explain that this is what's known as basically stereotype threat, and how this one factor alone has this explanatory power to explain the condition of the black community in the U.S. And it's just a story, okay? It's an emotive story to emote you into, well, whatever his agenda is. I don't know. You take on my hypotheses at the beginning and go from there. And I know it's that type of rhetoric because, he mentions, there's scientific study on this stereotype threat, but, he could have presented that. Why not present that? Why all the emotion? Well, because it's how politics works. It's trying to emote you into a political position. Not your brain, not your intelligent side. Don't use that side. Use your emotive side. Because that's what makes sense. Okay. Enough of that then. Like I said, don't really like this guy much. Well, peace out, my brothers, sisters, and everyone in between.